Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 24 quarterback and top 24 tight end rankings for week number 8. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at notoriousfntsy. If you have any questions about week number 8, never hesitate but to ask down below in the comment section. I love talking to you guys down there. And if you guys want to join our brand new Discord, click on the link in the video description. It's free. I answer fantasy football questions on there as well. So thank you guys all so much for listening to this. Let's get into today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's do it. We begin with quarterbacks 1 through 8, headlined by Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, going up against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Currently, Josh Allen is the quarterback 2 in all of fantasy football. Every single week, this guy's a must-start quarterback. The Green Bay defense has been pretty just all right this season, pretty meh, and Josh Allen should have a huge performance in this game. He is yet to finish outside of the top 5 at the quarterback position all season long. Next up, we move to Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Jalen Hurts has had a pretty consistent season as well, finishing inside the top 12 every single week, aside from week number 4 up against the Jaguars, where he was quarterback 15. He's currently the quarterback number 5. I know the Pittsburgh Steelers defense did look pretty decent up against the Miami Dolphins last week on Sunday Night Football, but ultimately, the Philadelphia Eagles offense is just too fucking good for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be able to do much in this game, and I think Jalen Hurts has a huge performance. At number 3, we have Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland on Monday Night Football. Back-to-back weeks for Joe Burrow as the quarterback number 1 in fantasy football. This week, he gets the Cleveland Browns defense, who have definitely been a disappointment this season. Going into the year, you probably would have thought that the Cleveland Browns would have had one of the better defenses in the NFL, and that just is not the case. Joe Shiesty is currently the quarterback number 4 in all of fantasy football, and yet again, we have another one of those matchups where you're just going to play him, right? Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, these guys are all must-start quarterbacks every single week. You don't even have to do some crazy breakdown into any of them. At number 4, we have the Call of Duty king, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals, going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota on Sunday. Now, I know a lot of people will say that the Call of Duty narrative is played out for Kyler Murray, but guess what? Call of Duty came out on Thursday. If Kyler Murray goes out up against the Minnesota Vikings in a game that I really do believe could be a tit-for-tat, high-scoring matchup, back and forth affair, then if he shows up and plays great, then the Call of Duty narrative is dead. It is put in a coffin and nailed in, okay? It's over. But if he comes out here up against the Vikings in a matchup that I think he could do well in and shits the bed, then people are still going to keep making fun of him. So for Kyler's sake, I hope that no one makes fun of him, and I hope that he performs well, because if he didn't, the narrative is going to come bite him directly in the ass. So Kyler Murray up against the Minnesota Vikings, this is an excellent matchup. Kyler's been pretty safe all year, aside from one down game up against the Rams in week 3. He's currently the quarterback 6. He's another one of those guys that you just roll out with confidence. At number 5, we have Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Chicago Bears on Sunday. Now, going into last week up against the Detroit Lions, we all thought that Dak Prescott, since he was coming back off of that injury, even so, he was going to light up the Detroit Lions defense like they were a fucking firework. The Lions have one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the NFL. That defense is complete and utter hot fucking garbage, and Dak Prescott ultimately doesn't shit the bed because he's quarterback 18, but he does not live up to his expectations. This week, he gets the Chicago Bears at home in Jerry's World. The Bears defense is coming off of an excellent performance up against the New England Patriots. I'm not too sure I'm 100% sold in on Dak Prescott having a huge game, but I think you got to rank him high because I think the Bears defense isn't as good as what we saw, and I think Dak Prescott will bounce back. At number 6, we have my guy Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins going up against the Detroit Lions on Sunday in Detroit. Now, again, I will reiterate that the Detroit Lions defense is complete and utter fucking dog shit, and that if Tua Tagovailoa doesn't lay the hammer down in this game, if he doesn't absolutely skull fuck the Detroit Lions defense, then something is clearly wrong. Last week up against the Steelers, he was the quarterback number 11. And when this guy has played for the Dolphins, he has been playing out of his mind. This is by far and away the best year that we have seen out of Tua Tagovailoa, and it's no surprise because the offensive line is better and his weapons are significantly better. I think this could be a huge Tyreek Hill week and could also end up being a huge Tua Tagovailoa week. At number 7, we have You Like That, Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, again, when we talked about Kyler Murray, we talked about how this could be a very high-scoring, tit-for-tat, high-scoring matchup, and that's what I think is going to end up happening. Kirk Cousins has looked pretty solid this season. To start off the year, he was on a bit of a rocky road, QB 12, 25, 10, 21, but recently he's kind of found some water, as you could say. Quarterback 5, 13, he was on bye last week, coming out the bye. I think they're going to look hot up against the Arizona Cardinals defense, who just got fucking diced up by Andy Dalton. Now, I know Andy Dalton didn't realistically have that great of a game for real life, but in fantasy football, he still had a very solid showing, and we're going to be talking about Mr. Andy Dalton a little bit later. Next up, we move to the final quarterback inside the top 8, Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the G-Men this week on Sunday. So Geno Smith, for weeks 3 through 5, was on an absolute heater, was inside the top 8 quarterbacks every single week, and then recently he's kind of not been bad. He hasn't shit the bed or anything. Quarterback 19 and 15, he's just been pretty decent. This week he gets the Giants. This could be a high-scoring game if Daniel Jones and the Giants offense are as legit as they have looked. Even with very little weapons, that offense has been able to perform at a very high capacity. Geno Smith will very likely be without DK Metcalf on Sunday. I think it's a bit of gamesmanship of them talking about, oh, maybe Geno Smith's gonna, or maybe DK Metcalf's gonna come back. Come on, we all know he's not gonna play on Sunday, but at the end of the day, I still think Geno can get it done with the weapons they have there. At number 9, we have Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Now, Derek Carr is one of the quarterbacks where you just play him every week. He's probably going to be quarterback 8 through 16, and you just accept that. He's never really going to put your team on his back, but he's also never really going to play like shit. Kyler looked really good up against the Saints defense last week. The Saints are also one of those defenses that have been a huge disappointment this season. Devontae Adams is dealing with the flu-like symptoms, like he's going to have some Jordan flu game, even though Jordan didn't actually have the flu. He just had food poisoning, but Derek Carr should be in for a fine game here. Again, it's hard to put super high expectations onto Carr because he never really fulfills them, but he's always going to be decent. And he's always going to be a start-worthy quarterback. Next up at 10, we got Jared Goff, the Goffinator, going up against the Detroit Lions in Miami, or going up against the Detroit Lions. He's on the Lions, going up against the Miami Dolphins at home in Detroit. Back-to-back shit games out of Jared Goff. I won't put it lightly. Quarterback 29, 28, that is absolutely fucking abysmally bad. Terrible. The Dolphins defense looked good against the Steelers, but they're fucking injured everywhere. Everyone is hurt. Byron Jones is probably not going to play. Brandon Jones just fucking out for the season. There's players getting hurt left and right for the Dolphins defense. So, and again, the Lions have had a really good offense, like outside these last 2 games where they've been lacking. I think this could be a bounce back spot for the Lions offense, especially with DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown back. Next up, we move to quarterback number 11, Jimmy Guap, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Pornstar, quarterback of the 49ers going up against the LA Rams. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is just the definition of fucking safety. You throw him in every single week. He's never going to beat the shit out of your opponent. He's like Derek Carr. Quarterback, in the last 3 weeks, he's been quarterback 9, 9, and 9. And I'm not saying no in German. 3 weeks in a row, quarterback 9. So, Nick, you have him too low at 11. He's also been quarterback 22, 28, and 14. He's been pretty good all year long. Pretty reliable. I know, but Nick, he's playing the Rams defense. Against the Rams last time, he was quarterback 22. Think he has a pretty solid showing here, even without Deebo Samuel. At number 12, we have Danny Dimes, Danny Stumbles, Danny Fumbles, Daniel Jones of the New York Football Giants going up against the Seattle Seahawks. This, again, is a matchup that I really like. Last week, Daniel Jones was the quarterback number 3 in fantasy football. Now, I know that's obviously a ceiling game out of Daniel Jones, but he has that rushing upside inside of him. He rushed for over 100 yards last week up against the Jaguars defense that is far superior to the Seattle Seahawks. The game plan for the Giants has been really effective under Brian Daboll. And I think Daniel Jones has earned some respect to be a top 12 guy. And number 13, we have Mr. Discount Double Check Aaron Rodgers. Now, despite the struggles last week up against the Commanders, he was still the quarterback 12 in fantasy football. This week, he gets the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. Obviously not the most ideal matchup, but this is going to be a game where he is going to have to throw late in the game because they are going to be playing from behind. Again, even though this is a tough matchup, in my opinion, Rodgers just continues to be a top 14 quarterback basically every single game. So you just kind of have to rank him this high, understand that maybe this is a down game and he's like quarterback 20, but he also has the upside, even though the Packers team isn't the best, to be a top 5 guy if the narrative really pushes this to be a shootout matchup. At number 14, we have Trevor Lawrence, touchdown Jesus, of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Denver Broncos in prime time. Gotta love the Broncos in prime time, baby. Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Let's ride. Top 8 weeks, 2 weeks in a row, quarterback 4 and 7, week 6, quarterback 4 against the Colts. Last week against the Giants, quarterback 7. Trevor Lawrence deserves some respect. The issue is that he's playing up against the Denver Broncos. I know the Broncos as a whole, as a unit, suck ass. But as a defense, the defensive unit is amazing. It's amazing. So I don't trust Trevor Lawrence as much this week because of just how good the Broncos defense has looked. At number 15, we have Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's world. Justin Fields has really turned things around recently. To start off the year, his quarterback 23, 27, 31, and 26. The last 3 games, he's ripped off quarterback 13, 8, and 5. So we got to start paying attention to Justin Fields because while there's a lot of negativity about his game, right, he kind of stares at one read. He hasn't been that effective in the NFL thus far. It hasn't been a long career. It's not like he's been in the NFL for 10 years or something. A very short career, but he hasn't been the best. But maybe, just maybe, over the last 3 weeks, they kind of figured shit out and figured out the game plan to utilize Justin Fields. He's been running more. 12 rushes, 14 rushes, 8 rushes. He's had a touchdown in all of the last 3 games. He's looked very effective. So I'll give credit to Justin Fields. This matchup, though, is tough. The defense in Dallas is no pushover like when Devontae Adams pushed over that cameraman. No pushover here. I like Justin Fields, but the matchup does somewhat concern me. To close out the top 16, we have Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford has been fucking dog shit all season long. Quarterback 29, 10, 27, 29, 23, 18 by last week. He turned things around against Carolina last week. Last time they played the Niners, he was quarterback 29, and this Niners defense is firing at all capacities, right? I know, Nick, they didn't really do that good against the Chiefs last week. Okay, but that's the Chiefs. There's a big difference between the Chiefs that look like world fucking beaters, aside from up against the Buffalo Bills, compared to the Rams, who are on a decline. The offensive line in LA sucks. It's bad. So Matthew Stafford, man, oh man, I don't want to start him. But then once you get past Matthew Stafford, things start to get incredibly dicey, and then you probably are going to talk yourself into starting Matthew Stafford before we move on into quarterback 17 through 24, and then we pivot into the tight end position. I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our sponsor of today's video over at BetMGM. They've been on the screen the whole time. They've also been in my hat this whole entire time as well. I know, Nick, it's flipped around. How are we going to know that? I know. So BetMGM, if you're a brand new user to BetMGM, and you click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, and you bet $10 on any pre-game NBA moneyline tonight, you receive $200 in free bets if anyone in the NBA hits a three-pointer tonight, which is guaranteed to happen. Someone is going to hit a three-pointer in the NBA tonight, and you are going to receive $200 of free bets. Your bet, your pregame moneyline bet that you bet $10 on, doesn't even have to win for you to get the $200 in free bets. And then obviously, if your moneyline bet wins, you also receive the winnings for that bet. You have to be a new user to BetMGM, but make sure that you click on the link in the video description to activate that offer, because who wouldn't want $200 in free bets? And the best part about it is, maybe you don't like the NBA, but you want to get the $200 in free bets. Guess what? You can bet it on the NFL. I assume you like the NFL, right? You're watching this NFL video. If you don't love betting on the NFL, you can bet on MLB, NHL, any sport. So all you got to do is just bet the $10 pregame money line on the NBA, and then you could turn those $200 in free bets into any other sports. So next up, we move into quarterback 17 through 24. Make sure you guys check that out. Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, the Ginger Ninja, quarterback 2 last week up against the Arizona Cardinals. The Las Vegas Raiders defense is not very good. Andy Dalton could look to repeat a great performance. The team appears to have just benched famous Jameis Winston in favor of Andy Dalton, which I don't really agree with, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. Andy Dalton looked really good last week, though he did throw 3 interceptions. I do kind of weirdly trust Andy Dalton here, but this does also kind of reek of a big letdown game. Next up, we move to Marcus Mariota of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Carolina Panthers. Marcus Mariota has been pretty safe every single week. Outside of week 4, where he was quarterback 32, he's been quarterback 10, 18, 15, 32, 10, 5, and 19. Pretty reliable as a top 18 guy. The problem is, he might only throw the ball 14 times in any given game, so you're going to hinge directly on his rushing touchdown upside and his rushing upside as a whole. And if he doesn't rush very effectively up against the Carolina Panthers, then Marcus Mariota may take a shit directly on the chest of your team. The Panthers defense isn't all that great, so I think Mariota's a fine start this week, but his upside's limited by the fact that he just doesn't throw the ball much because of Arthur Smith. Next up, we move to quarterback number 19, Taylor Heinicke of the Washington Commanders, going up against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis in Lucas Oil Stadium. So Taylor Heinicke is not necessarily a step up from Wentz, but he's more fun to watch than Wentz because Heinicke will just heave the ball all over the yard. Last week, he was QB 13 up against the Green Bay Packers. He does have some sneaky rushing upside. If you remember watching that game up against the Bucs in the playoffs a couple of years ago when the Bucs ultimately beat them and then won the Super Bowl, back before Tom Brady's wife divorced him. So we got Heinicke as a top 20 guy. This matchup is a little bit juicy, but the fact is that Taylor Heinicke, also with all those crazy plays that he makes, they also lead to supreme fuck-ups where Heinicke could screw everything up and throw like 4 interceptions. At number 20, we have Jacoby Brissett. Now, Brissett's been on a downward swing recently, quarterback 21 and 23. Over the last 2 games, the Bengals defense has definitely looked a little bit better, but again, we're talking about safe quarterbacks, like guys that I feel like are locks to finish inside the top 20. Now, obviously, top 20 weeks don't win you shit in fantasy, right? Being like quarterback 19. But in terms of rankings, you just got to rank them around here because quarterback 28, 16, 12, 16, 16, 21, 23, anywhere outside the top 20 seems a little low for Jacoby. At 21, we got Tannehill. Tannehill's definitely going to be banged up going into this game, but I don't think we need maximum power fucking Ryan Tannehill in order to play good up against a bad Houston Texans defense. So I think Tannehill will do just fine, but I am definitely worried about his injury. At 22, we have Kenny Pickett of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, in any other matchup, I think I am going to keep moving Kenny Pickett up the rankings. The issue is he's playing the Eagles this week, who might have the best defense in the National Football League, and an offense that can just churn the clock, beat the clock down, and then Pickett won't have very much time to get anything going. Quarterback 18, 19, 25, 17. He's been good, but this matchup does really concern me. At number 23, we have Sam Ehlinger of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Washington Commanders. Ehlinger's first game as a starter, Matty Ice Baby, played so bad that they benched his ass even after giving him one of those fat-ass checks. They gave him a huge check. See you later, Sam Ehlinger. You're not that guy, pal. Or see you later, Matt Ryan. You're not that guy, pal. Sam Ehlinger, you are that guy. Texas up, horns up maybe, because everyone else says horns down. We're back. Sam Ehlinger up against the Commanders has a lot of rushing upside, but we've never seen him, and the offensive line sucks cock. So a little worrisome about Ehlinger. And then 24, we got Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A decent game last time Russ played. He was quarterback 15 in fantasy football against the Chargers. Didn't play last week against the Jumbo Jets. Seems like he's going to play up against the Jaguars. He was high, kneeing his way through the plane on the way to London. Russell Wilson in prime time has been bad. I don't really trust Russell Wilson, so he's quarterback 24. Now we'll pivot into the tight end position, headlined by George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the LA Rams in LA. Mark Andrews obviously didn't have all that great of a game, but we're not talking about Mark Andrews because he already played and you can't just magically throw him into your lineup. Last week, George Kittle on National Tight End Day, tight end number 1. Tight end number 1 in standard and tight end number 1 in half PPR. And half PPR, he's been tight end 23, 37, 22, 6, and 1. Over the last 2 weeks, he really started to step things up. I know the Rams defense isn't some pushover, but George Kittle's a must start every week. Same thing goes with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert has been not the best this season, obviously, because they have so many weapons around in Philadelphia. But still, tight end, 13, 7, 9, 11, 5, 33, one down game isn't going to make my panties going a bunch. I'm not going to worry too much about Dallas Goedert. I'm still excited to start him. Tight end 8 on the season, tight end 2 in my rankings on the week. And number 3, we have Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Now, with DeAndre Hopkins back, we did not see nearly as much Zach Ertz, only 4 targets in that game. He was previously getting like 6, 7, 8 targets a game. So, do I love that about Zach Ertz? No. But am I taking a 1-game sample size and overly panicking about Zach Ertz? Also, no. I like this matchup up against the Vikings. And number 4, we have Tyler Higbee. Now, again, we went on this whole spiel earlier about how Matthew Stafford has been awful. This Rams offense has been awful. But Tyler Higbee and Cooper Kupp are immunized, like Aaron Rodgers, to this bullshit that is happening in LA with the Rams. Tight end 17, 8, 12, 6, 10, 51 last week. Sure, one down game again. I'm not going to panic, or not last week because they're on a bye week, but week 6 against the Panthers. Again, one down game doesn't concern me for these tight ends that are amazing. And number 5, we have TJ Hawkinson. Now, there's always that narrative going around that Hawkinson does not perform as well when Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown are healthy, and there is some truth to that. But at the end of the day, are you really going to sit TJ Hawkinson with how dog shit the tight end landscape has looked this year? Kyle Pitts was a 3rd or 4th round pick, and he's not even ranked inside my top 8. So obviously, you're going to start TJ Hawkinson. Obviously. At number 6, we have Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This guy just gets fed with targets. 9 targets last week. Up against the Dolphins. 8 receptions, 75 receiving yards, 12 fantasy points. Tight end number 4. Kenny Pickett loves to throw the ball to him. Why? Because Kenny Pickett is a rookie, and rookies typically try not to do some crazy shit and heave the ball 50,000 feet down the field or yards down the field. Takes the simple throws. Keep it simple, stupid. Just throw it to Freiermuth, and that's what he keeps doing, and it's working well. At number 7, we have Taysom Hill, the GOAT of the New Orleans Saints, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Last week, he was the tight end 6. Pretty good. He's really up in the air or down low. Like his I guess that doesn't make sense. Like, his range of outcomes is very drastic. Like, there's the smash hill or just bad hill, right? He needs to score, he needs to get some rushing opportunities, and he needs to potentially throw the ball. But we've seen the 34-point game out of him. We've also seen 1-point games out of him. So he's kind of risky, but the upside makes you want to play him. At number 8, we got Big Bob Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Not the best game last week up against the Commanders out of Tonyan. He's only scored 1 touchdown this season, but Al Lazard's out, so you would think that Tonyan would be more involved in the game plan. And again, they're going to be passing a lot, so I think that helps out Tonyan. Now I move to tight ends 9 through 16. If you've enjoyed the video thus far, make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button down below. We got Dalton Schultz, who's questionable going into the game. I do expect him to play, as does the reports that I've read on Dalton Schultz. Last week up against the Detroit Lions, we saw his second best game on the year. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 49 receiving yards, 7 fantasy points, tight end 16. It seems like with Dak Prescott under center, Dalton Schultz will be more reliable. So I got to rank him inside the top 10. At number 10, we got Dawson Knox one time, if you are with me, of the Buffalo Bills. His best game last week up against the Chiefs. 3 for 3, like a free throw, 37 receiving yards, and a tug, 11 fantasy points, tight end number 10. Now, Dawson Knox has been a big disappointment this year. I'm not saying he was a bust because he was like a 7th or 8th round pick. Hard to be a bust when you're drafted that late in fantasy football drafts, but he has disappointed. This matchup should be interesting up against the Packers, so I'll give him a fair ranking since he did look better last week. It seemed like, or his last game because they were on bye last week. Next up, we got Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Panthers. How low can you rank Kyle Pitts? How low can you go? This is as low as I'm going. He probably will finish as like tight end 20. He's tight end 22 on the season right now, but the problem is the second you sit him, he's going to score 50 fantasy points. At tight end number 12, we have Hayden Hurst of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Browns in Cleveland. Hayden Hurst without Jamar Chase would appear to be a better start. He's still been decent even when all three of the big receivers there, Higgins, Boyd, and Chase, are healthy. So I'll give it to Hayden Hurst. He continues to be a guy that plays decent every week. Not necessarily a top 5 guy. He was a top 5 guy up against the Ravens, but not a guy you'd consider as a top 5 guy, but a relatively safe play. At number 13, we have Irv Smith Jr. of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Things weren't too bright for the start of the season. Tight end 63, 29, 34. Recently, tight end 19 and 14 last week, going 4 for 4, like he was at Wendy's for 7 receiving yards and a score. I like this game up against the Cardinals. An interesting matchup. Not in love with Irv Smith, but again, we're kind of in the range where you probably picked him up and you got to play him. At number 14, we have Easy Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars, tight end 9 last week up against the Giants. Been seeing a very big ramp up in terms of targets over the last 3 weeks. 10 targets, 6 targets, and 7 targets. Up against the Broncos defense, the matchup is concerning. If it was a different matchup, for instance, like against the Raiders next week, then I probably would have liked Evan Ingram more. At number 15, we have my boy Mike Licky Amagasicki. Over the last 2 weeks, the Dolphins have kind of made the game plan to be, hey, let's get Gesicki involved. Maybe that's because the team wants to trade him. They want to get his value to be maximum. I'm not too sure. But 7 targets in both of the last 2 games. He scored 2 touchdowns in week 6. This week he gets the Lions defense that, again, is incredibly bad. So I like Gesicki here, but they have so many weapons that it's like Hayden Hurst, but like a worse version of Hayden Hurst. In number 16, we have Greg Dulcich of the Denver Broncos going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This guy look up a picture of Greg Dulcich. He looks like one of those guys, I forgot their names, from Workaholics. Tight end 9 and 12 over the last 2 games, so we got to put some respect on his name, put him inside the top 16. The Broncos love to utilize the tight end. The problem is, wouldn't surprise me if it was some random motherfucker on the team that ends up scoring, not Greg Dulcich. At number 17, we got the other Saints tight end, Jawan Johnson of the Saints going up against the Raiders this week. Of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. So Jawan Johnson was the tight end 2 last week. I highly doubt he's going to score 2 touchdowns this game, but he has seen a ramp up of targets, 6 and 5 the last 2 games. So he deserves his rank up here. But again, if you're starting any of these guys, you're just praying to the football lords above that they score a touchdown. Noah Fant of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Giants. Bunch of good games in a row, then a bad game last week. They also use Will Dissly, which makes this situation extra confusing. At number 19, we have Bryant stepping in, Harrison Bryant stepping in for David Njoku. If Jacoby feeds Bryant the same amount that he fed Njoku, then we're going to be very excited about where I ranked Harrison Bryant. If he doesn't, then we're going to be very disappointed. We'll see on Sunday. His ranking could definitely be higher if I trusted him, but I don't really trust him that much until we see it, obviously. Tight end 20, we got Tyler Conklin, who has been down astronomical ever since Zach Wilson has been starting. First 3 games, tight end 11, 16, and 5. After that, tight end 17, 71, 40, and 25. Yikes. At 21, we got Will Dissly. Again, another one of those scenarios where either one of them could have a good game, so you can't really trust either of them. But right now, if I had to bet which one would score more points, I'd probably say Noah Fant. At number 22, we got Hunter Henry, who's been eating with Bailey Zappi, the Zappinator. But once things went back to Mac Jones last week, Hunter Henry struggled. Who knows what the quarterback situation is going to look like on Sunday? I bet you it's Mac Jones. And then if he struggles again, maybe they go back to Zappi. This is a bad situation in New England. At number 23, we got Cole Kmet of the Bears going up against the Cowboys. Cole Kmet has been seeing more targets. They've been throwing the ball more, but 3 targets a game doesn't make me super sure that I want to start Cole Kmet. At number 24, we got Foster Moreau. If Darren Waller miraculously plays, throw him inside the top 10 tight ends. If Moreau's the guy, I think he's fine as tight end 24. He's going to just do decent and probably not do anything crazy, but just be good, decent, because, he's on the Raiders against the Saints in what could be a pretty high-scoring games. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that like button down below as well as that subscribe button. It would help me out a ton. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at notorious, FNTSY. And make sure you guys check out that BetMGM offer link down below in the video description. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye!